Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. It was great chatting with Cory Marks about his new song, Make My Country Rock, and what it's like playing in the country world and playing in the rock world, man. This first aired on Monday, July 29th. Here you go. Well, tonight we are hanging with Cory Marks as we celebrate his brand new song, Make My Country Rock, and the announcement that he's touring alongside Theory of a Dead Man, doing the Lord's work as he bridges the gap between country music and rock and roll. Cory, it's great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, listen, what runs through your head when you hear that you've got this new song out, this new album announced, you've got this tour with Theory of a Dead Man coming up? Like, what runs through your head?
Some days it's just like, finally, because as you know, with Outlaws and Outsiders, things are just picking up steam bigger than they, ever were before. And, it's kind of a global hit that was like, holy shit, this is happening. And then, of course, the C word happened, which I hate to mention, COVID. But now this time around, nothing is going to stop this train. And so to see, my good friends like Tyler Connolly and Theory want to bring me out on the road, knowing that I have this new music finally coming out after, 2.5, 3 years of writing and recording, and then having guys like Sully of Godsmack on this new track, Make My Country Rock. But of course, the country rock legend himself, Travis Tritt, and the one and only Mick Mars, all on one track too. I've never thought, that was going to be a possibility, or that you could, ever say like, hey, have you heard that song with, Sully from Godsmack, Travis Tritt, and Mick Mars? It's like, what? but we're kicking ass, man, and we're enjoying it. So I'm just really thankful for all of it.
Well, listen, you jumped right into it. So yeah, this new song, I mean, it's got pretty incredible special guests. How in the hell did this come together?
Well, again, I've been writing this record for, 2-3 years now. And, I've been writing with the boys from the Four Horsemen. A great writing crew. My guys are Blair Daly and Zach Malloy, and they know what I'm about. They know I'm a lot country, and I'm a lot rock, and I'm a little bit of everything in between. So we kind of had a vision. We've written some songs that I'm really, really excited about, and this is one of them, Make My Country Rock. And I just thought, man, we need another like Outlaws and Outsiders type thing. So when I was hanging out with Mick at his house in Nashville, I thought I'd ask him, to say, hey, would you ever, play with me again? And he's like, of course, anything you need, man. I would love to lay down some guitar for you. And he actually was the first one on this track. And then I thought to myself, man, I gotta talk to Travis and see if, he'd do it too. He loved the song. So he's like, man, this kicks ass. I want to be, yeah, I'm in. He said, cause I remember he texted me on the road. Actually, he texted me, he's like, I call you. So he calls me when we're setting up a sound check on this cross Canada tour I did at the start of the year in February, March. And, he's like, hey man, Outlaws did pretty good, didn't it? So let's do it again. So
I love it.
That's some other ideas were rolling around about, who would be the, and we thought like, do we do it all over again with Ivan? But Ivan, loved it, but he was on tour. He was going to, making a new record, hitting Europe. So it just didn't work out, but I know he loved the track too. And then I thought to myself, oh man, I think the label brought up some ideas, and then one of them was Sully from Godsmack. I'm thinking, you know what? I've always, I've heard of Godsmack, obviously listened to Godsmack, and I've always been a fan of Sully, even as a drummer growing up, because I know there's an appreciation for Rush there, but also being a front man and a drummer and doing that drum duo that they do live.
Totally.
Always I was like, holy shit. So I was like, let's see if he wants to do it. And next thing you know, we're texting each other. He's, man, killer song. I love it. I'm so happy to be part of it. And it's like, holy shit, this is going to rock.
Did I hear a little bit of Boston accent there as you were acting like Sully? I mean, it sounded like it when you said kill a track, man. Yeah.
Kill a track, man.
I love it. Well, listen, man. And just listen, I mean, the song's amazing and how that all came together.
Thank you, Chuck.
Too, for you, like just as an artist, but also as a fan of all of this, like to be able to say like, yeah, I was sitting with Mick and I asked him if he wanted to play, or, Travis Tritt, we were texting, or now we're texting with Sully. Like, just an incredible thing, man. And all these years into your career and all the things you've already done, like to still have like those moments has to be such a great feeling.
It really is, man. Cause as I'm sure you've talked to many artists, it's a roller coaster. You got to enjoy the ups and try to get through the downs. And it's been really just a crazy ride for me, ups and downs and all arounds. And, but some days I gotta, you wake up and your missed text the next day is like you got Mick Mars, Travis Tritt, Ian Thornley, a big wreck, and now there's like making these new friendships with Sully, and it's just like you gotta be like, hey man, these guys have been around a long time and have kicked ass for a long time, and they're your buddies now, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's a total pinch me moment. I'm thankful for it every day. Where again, when something's kind of goes shitty, it's like, hey, I could sometimes, like I've had conversations with Mick, just talking about bullshit, about like industry or whatever. And, sometimes when I needed some help with, this crazy business, Travis would be like, give me a call this day and we'll chat. And next thing you know, I'm talking to Travis Tritt for 2 hours about anything and everything. Yeah. So it's pretty, I'm really thankful for that. That to me is like, those are like getting awards, but those are lifetime friendships and very, very meaningful to me.
Well, and that gratitude, man, that everything you just said, like, you're saying it with a lot of gratitude, and that's what keeps you going, and then that's what keeps you real and connected to the audience. You're not taking any of that for granted or anything like that.
No, I mean you can't. And obviously the older we all get, the more we realize, just how short and crazy and hard and exciting this whole life is. So like I said, you got to enjoy the ups while they're there and just get through the downs, while they're there too, and make the best of everything.
So I know you said you've been working on this album, Sorry for Nothing, for a little bit now, and it's going to be out later this fall. How's it feel like to be at this moment where you're talking about the album?
You have no idea, man. Like this is like, we're going to release it out. No, never mind. Oh, okay, here's what we're going to do. We need to go down and write some songs, and then we're releasing here. It's like, man, 2 months. No, we're not. So it was just, again, the roller coaster. This just feels incredible because I think at the end of the day, we got through the, some of my co-writers and friends in the business were like, dude, I have not seen anyone with this much patience, because it's just like, it's like you're pulling me in, and then like, you're pulling me in, and then, just go back out for a little bit. So, and I think in the end, again, taking the positive out of it, I think it allowed me to make more friends, make more connections, write better songs and write more songs. I mean, we went through 30, 40 songs and trim it down to 13 maybe, or whatever it is. And there's still more in the can. Like there's a bunch I haven't recorded yet either that I really love. So it's nice to have all this. I really have this whole, there's probably 50 or 60 songs in total, including this album, to be like, all right, well, at least, maybe we can start putting the next record together already. So it's kind of nice. But it feels really good to finally have this, this mix of, man, there's rock, there's, kick-ass rock and roll, there's, that country rock type feel. And then there's, straight up one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Merle Haggard, and Willie. There's that kind of feel on one album.
Awesome.
So I really feel like it takes you for a nice little ride, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it. Well, and I'm sorry for nothing.
I love that, man, too. And like, listen, I'm all for widening the gates, right? The more fans we can get into rock and roll, the better. And if that means having a little twang or a little whatever, a little Willie or a little Merle in it, man, hell yeah, let's go.
I mean, that's those guys. I mean, even some of the heaviest rockers. I mean, even guys like Dimebag Darrell and Vinny and Zakk Wylde. Those guys have some country favorites too. Like the Waylon Jennings and the Merles and Johnny Paycheck and those badass crazy dudes. So it's really cool,
man. No, I mean James Hetfield. I'm a huge Metallica fan, and he wears his love for Waylon and those guys, proudly. Yeah,
that's really cool, man. He's a badass. Like, man, as a drummer, I was always listening to like Pantera, Lamb of God, of course, Rush and Deep Purple and Grand Funk, like the older groups. But now, as I'm in my 12th, 13th year now, which is crazy to think about, the sing-songwriting world, I just have so much more respect and admiration for guys like Metallica, and especially someone like James Hetfield. It's the fact that he fronts a band and could play that guitar well and entertain a crowd. And man, you listen to the lyrics, like it's like, wow, these are great songs that he was writing in his early 20s. Like, what?
Yeah,
it's mind blowing. And they're still here, and they're still kicking tons of ass, and they're still relevant. So it's like that's right. What I look into and be like, well, I'd like to try to do a quarter of that in my career.
That's right, man. That's right, man. And listen, there are fans out there who are like, nah, you keep that twang, you keep that steel guitar out of my rock and roll. What do you say to guys like that?
I mean, I know there's like, to be honest, the amount of times that I've heard like, I hate country music, but I love your shit. or like, like I've never liked country, but dude, your stuff kicks ass. I think,
I love that.
give it a chance. I mean, that's the biggest, like, again, that's like an award for me too, where it's like to transition people who like, no, I'm not listening to any country. There's not a chance in the world, but it's like, hey man, bought your album, fucking love it. What? I'm a huge Metallica and Slayer fan, but this album kicks ass. Cool. And again, it's like, I'm a mix of that, Eric Church, a little Ozzy Osbourne, some Merle Haggard, some Bryan Adams. I'm all for it because I love it. That's what I grew up on. And I just hope, that people love, there's always going to be lovers and haters. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter.
That's it, man.
But, you just got to kind of, take what you can get and hopefully, turn those people, at least some people around, like, this guy ain't that bad. It's pretty good.
Well, and that's, listen, and you can, the word gets probably overused, but the authenticity of what you do, it comes from, because you do love all of that, right? You're not forcing anything. It's not like you're trying to be country because that's where you're going to have a hit song, or trying to be rock because that's what you want to do. Like, it's stuff you love. And that's why people connect with it.
Country's just that's how I grew up, man. I mean, I grew up, I always got to mention this. So my mom was the baby of 8. And she grew up up north, northern Canada, in a small little French community. And long story short, her dad, my papa, were born on the same day. 65 years apart. October 11th is our birthday, which is actually the same date that Sorry for Nothing comes out, which will be my 35th birthday, which is like, just, I told the label, they weren't even aware. They're like, we could work with that. but I grew up with my aunts and uncles and my mom and dad, smoke-filled kitchen with guitars, playing anything from George Jones to Waylon, to Merle, to Buck Owens, all that stuff. And it's just, that's like, whenever I hear that stuff now, for those that aren't with us anymore, it just, it brings them to me, and I go back in that time, and it's just such a heartfelt moment. But, my dad being from Toronto, he grew up on Rush, but then he loved Dio, he loved Rainbow. And so I got to hear all that stuff too. And I remember when I first started drumming at 10 years old, by the time I got to I was 12 or 13, he's like, check out this band and it's some CD players. And we owned a 3-for-1 pizza shop back in the day. So one of his pizza delivery drivers, his name was Tyler, I'll never forget. He was like, he had this huge drum kit. And I remember being like, Dad, I want that kit. It's so cool. But he introduced me to the band called Arch Enemy, and Stigmata was the record. And I'm like, this is fucking cool. So then from there, 14 got me into Dream Theater, and then Symphony X. And then it was Pantera, Metallica, and Lamb of God. And so I just loved all that stuff. So then once I started writing, I wanted to do I loved Merle and Brad Paisley. That's what I wanted to do. It's that's what I like. But then I saw Eric Church live and got to listen to his music, and it was like, holy shit, I can do some rock in this stuff. So I've always wanted to take it to the next level. And I was on one of my first writing trips with my dad. And am I talking too much?
No, dude, not at all, man.
I just
Keep it going.
Okay. I was on one of my first writing trips with my dad, and he goes, one of my favorite records in high school. I think my favorite record in high school, there was 2. There was Snakes and Arrows by Rush, just because it's Rush, and I thought the lyrics were just pretty intense. But then there was Black Rain by Ozzy. Yeah. And I remember listening to that record going Dad, this would be, how cool would it be to have a country record with this kind of production, the heavy drums, the so on and so forth. Turns out the producers from Canada, and this is, I was super new to this stuff, so I wasn't looking into who the big songwriters were or producers or what. I just wanted to go write and make some new friends and connections. Long story short, it was about 6 months later on another trip with my manager at the time. He goes, hey, I know someone who, later on when, you can afford, $200,000-$300,000 records. I know a guy I went to school with, and I'm like, who's producing these big bands. His name's Kevin Churko. And he's like, look, he produces Ozzy, Five Finger Death. I'm like, he produced that Black Rain album. And then another long story short, he calls up my manager not too long after that and goes, hey, man, I think I'm pretty demoned out after the Ozzy record. I kind of want to go back to some roots to country. Is there anyone you think I would want to work with, even up in Canada? And he goes, I have the guy. So That's anyway, amazing. He sends me my current stuff and some pictures and whatnot. And from what I heard, he had Chloe, his daughter and manager, say, what do you think of the guy? And she's like, yeah, I think it's cool, whatever. So when I was opening up for Toby Keith's only shows in Canada, one of them was in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, his hometown. And I find out that Kevin Churko's there to come watch me play because he's like, I got to see this guy live before I make any decisions.
Amazing. Wow.
Play the show, no pressure at all. And I get into my dressing room, and there's Kevin Churko with 2 shots of Jack Daniels, one in his hand and one for me. Gives me a shot. I'm like, holy shit, it's Kevin Churko. And he's like, are you free in September? I said, hell yeah. And the first song we wrote was Outlaws and Outsiders.
Wow, that's incredible, man. I love hearing that. And, like hearing too, your journey through rock. And, you've mentioned Pantera a couple times and being a drummer, with Vinny. Churko produced some Hell Yeah records with Vinnie Paul. And so to see those worlds cross is just amazing.
The Who I Am record, my first record, that snare that you hear is not just any typical D drum Vinnie Paul snare. It's Vinnie Paul's D drum snare. There's only 2 people that played it. 3 now. Kevin Churko. Well, Vinnie Paul first, Kevin Churko, and this guy right here.
That's incredible.
It was almost like when he set up the drums for tracking, because I played some drums on the record, he was like, there's a little something in there for you. And I walked up to the kit, and honest to God, I was like almost in tears. I'm like, is this? And through the glass, he's like, that's just drums. I'm like, oh my God. So cool.
That's amazing,
so
man.
cool. I'm even going back. I haven't thought of that or talked about that in a long time. I got goosebumps and everything. It's just super cool.
I got goosebumps hearing you talk about it. Man. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
See, and I just said, oh, hell yeah. And that's
there you go. Yeah.
Shit.
Full circle now. Full circle.
Thank you, Vinny.
Did you say you went on a riding trip with your dad?
He brought me down. He brought me down to. We drove down to Nashville once, and he likes to call it the executive producer of the demos that that I made. But what happens is I live in a smaller town at the time called North Bay, Ontario, which is 3 hours north of Toronto. So Toronto is like the main hub and easiest access to get out to where you need to go. And so often he would drive me to Toronto, say our goodbyes, and I'd go to Nashville for a week or 2, and then he'd be there to pick me back up. Yeah. Right. So
I wasn't sure if he was, if you guys are riding together or what that looked like. But
my dad's actually a good writer. He writes more of the country stuff. He was a drummer back in his day, and actually when I was playing bars, he was one of my first drummers.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Oh, dude, it was the coolest thing, man. It was the coolest thing until Mom had enough of him being too tired because he'd stumble in at 3 a.m. I'd pack up his drums for him and be like, Dad, I know you got to work at 6, so just get out of here. But I had to take one more Jaeger shot first before going home.
I love that, man. Cory Marks, thank you so much for hanging, man. Congrats on the release of this brand new track, Make My Country Rock. Congrats on this upcoming tour alongside Theory of a Dead Man. Congrats on Sorry for Nothing, out on your birthday in October.
Yes,
I cannot wait for that. And just congrats on all that's to come. You can stay up to date with everything happening in Cory's world at CoryMarks.com. Thank you for doing what you do, man. And you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate you more than you know. And thank you very much for this interview. And I hope to talk to you soon, brother.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.